What's up, y'all? You're listening to the Eagles post-game recap. I'm Alex Miller from the Eagle, joined always by Robert Cessna and Travis Brown. Texas A&M takes down Auburn 27-10 today to open SEC play. Guys, I don't know about you. Felt like A&M was always in control, but for most of the game, it was kind of an underwhelming performance from the Aggies against what's really a rebuilding Auburn team under Hugh Freeze.
Yeah, well, I'll say I didn't think they had it in the bag when it was 6-3 at halftime. So I wouldn't say they were always there. But after the first two scores of the second half, it was over just because of the defense. And I guess I got to admit, when it was 6-3, I said, oh, man, Hugh Freeze is going to find a way to win this game possibly. But defense, that's the defense I've been waiting to see, actually.
A&M and Auburn always have wacky games. You have last year the Cadillac-Williams game, the two teams that were trending downward. Who was going to get that win? You had the Shea Patterson game a couple of years ago here where they marched back. You had what was it, a couple of years ago when they marched back in the second half. There was the whole streak of only the road team won there for so many years. It just always makes for ridiculousness when these two teams come together, and today was no different. I know that was a lot of what you wrote about today, but hats off to Max Johnson. I mean, yeah, I went back and looked, and his first true playing time was in 2020, and it was against Auburn when Miles Brennan was hurt, and they needed to go to him to lead the offense. And so he's been in the situation where he hasn't been named the starter. This is pretty much his third time doing that. It's his third time having to step up and lead the offense. I don't know if there's that many more quarterbacks around the country who are as experienced in this kind of situation as him, and he did the job.
Yeah, big news of the day, of course, Connor Wegman left the game in the second quarter with a lower leg injury. Jimbo Fisher said the x-rays were negative. You know, Max was asked in the post-game press conference how much it helped that he got to go in after halftime. It wasn't in the middle of a series when, like Connor last year when they played at South Carolina, they were going on the field and then Haynes gets hurt. And all of a sudden, Connor's thrust into it. Kind of gave A&M a time to, catch its breath, get a feeling for what's going on, and kind of regroup. And then, sure enough, back-to-back touchdown drives in the third quarter is really what did Auburn in today.
Yeah, and Layden Robinson said at halftime, Max Johnson came up to him and said, this offense isn't going to slow down any with me there. And I would argue that it produced more. It went faster than it did in the first half because Connor Wegman had a little bit of a shaky start. Probably through, I think there's a string there of like 4 incomplete passes, which to his credit, he hasn't, I don't think, had a string of 4 incomplete passes this season. So you'll see that with a young quarterback, the little bit of the ups and downs. He was having an average game, and they weren't able to punch the ball into the end zone. They had to settle for 2 field goals early. Max Johnson comes in, and he connects on a 22-yard touchdown to his brother there early in the third quarter, and then just that beautiful pass, that deep pass to Evan Stewart in between 2 defenders for the second touchdown, and really those 14 points were all A&M needed to win the game.
I think overshadowed in A&M's, having to go to Johnson with Wigman getting knocked out of the game was the effort from the defensive front on A&M, because Auburn could not find a rhythm offensively. Their quarterbacks seemed pretty discombobulated at times, and A&M got home. That's something they really haven't done a lot of at all this season.
Yeah, what I thought was interesting is the defensive line dominated, really. The offensive line for Auburn couldn't get the job done. What I like to see, they did bring more pressure at times. They just didn't rely on the 3 or 4 guys up front, which was driving me crazy watching the last, when they played somebody like ULM, because when they did bring somebody from the outside, oh my gosh, they got in clean. And I would think with the kind of pressure they're getting up front, they should be able to do that against a lot of teams. So that was good to see the pressure. Still didn't get a turnover yet. It's amazing. But if you keep bringing pressure like that, I guess you could say Auburn's quarterbacks were so bad they couldn't even hit their own. They couldn't even throw an interception. They threw it so bad.
Yeah, yes, the defense should get all the praise in this game. Max Johnson ultimately went out there and stabilized things, but there wouldn't be really anything to stabilize if it wasn't for the defense holding them in. You look at those 2 sacks right before halftime, right after Connor Wigman went out, that forced Auburn back into a field goal. If they end up scoring, take some shots on that drive somehow, it's a completely different ballgame because A&M's going into the locker room losing and without their quarterback. I think those were 2 of the biggest key plays of the game, but I do think there's some instances. You do have to look at the fact that Auburn's offensive line is, I think Olin Buchanan of Texas called it the all-star of the group of five, the team of the group of five. They have all these transfers in that were unproven. It's not a good offensive line. And there was several times where they had guys wide open, and the quarterback just couldn't get it to them. Don't take away, it was a good outing from A&M's defense. You always just have to have that kind of in the back of your mind looking ahead when you get to Alabama, when you get to Ole Miss, when you get to LSU, and some offenses that can do some stuff. Is that going to come back to bite them, or is this a defense moving forward? I do think it's a defense moving forward, but there were some things to look out for as well.
I feel like typically after one conference game, you start to know more about where a team's at. And it seemed like going into this game, we knew A&M had a pretty decent offense, and the defense needed to step up, and particularly getting home to the quarterback. They did that today. Offense wasn't as firepower as they had been. Cease, what do you kind of make of where A&M's at going into, a game against Arkansas that's always pretty tricky for the Aggies?
Yeah, I said last week, I like the way the schedule played out because Auburn's going to either finish last or next to last in the West. So you played them. You should win. They did win. We'll have some hickeys here and there to talk about. Arkansas is a little better, a step up in a neutral site, so that, better test, and then Alabama comes to town in 3 weeks. So I was kind of worried, or whatever you want to say, because they didn't score early. They had Wegman, 5 possessions, they get two field goals. They got to do better than that when they have all their weapons except for Noah Thomas. So, when Lane Robinson said they weren't going to go down, I'd say, well, I hope not. You only had 6 points. I mean, you better not step down. But my point being is there's still a lot of work to be done on both sides. Last week we were kind of ragging on the defense because of Miami. Now, everybody's praising them. I get it. Auburn's a little bit challenged right now without a quarterback. I think, you got to be able to score in the 30s these days almost against anybody. If it turns out to be a great defensive game, then fine. Then A&M maybe have an advantage. But starting the game, they had a penalty. They had a substitution deal. When you have 5 possessions at home against a team that's going to finish 5th, 6th or 7th in the West, and you only score 6 points, to me, that's not good enough.
If I were to classify this game as a movie, I'd probably say it was a suspense or a thriller, but apparently it was more of like a rom-com because there was some hickeys or something out happening on the field. I think 2 of the guys that are going to get lost in the shuffle of all this, though, Randy Bond, kicking that 52-yarder, if he doesn't hit that long field goal, again, it's a completely different story in that first half. And Le'Veon Moss, I think that he... last week I said I think he is the guy that can separate himself, at least this season, into being that kind of bell cow back with the kind of mix of speed and strength that he has. Amari Daniels has speed, Reuben Owens has speed, but he has the strength, and I think he has a little bit more of the vision. You look early in the game, they needed a yard for first down. He got dead end into the line and spun out, found an extra 2 yards, picked it up, got that late touchdown, ended up finishing as the rushing leader. I think Le'Veon Moss is the guy to check mark at the top of the list of these guys, but they're 3 good running backs, and that can shuffle through the season. I just really liked what Moss has done the last couple of games.
Well, guys, you got any final thoughts on today's game, where the Aggies are headed?
Well, once again, I think we need to mention York, Anderson, and Cooper played well on defense. They were flying to the ball. And once again, is the defense, to me, we're going to talk about it again and again and again. That was, to me, the highlight. They brought pressure. They did a lot of good things. and I'm still waiting to see what the offense does moving forward.
See, you've covered a lot of college football for a long time. Have you ever seen a coach on the field during a play?
I've seen him on the play, but not that close. I mean, not when the guy ran by him, and it's like Jimbo's, waiting for the bus stop, and there went the bus. I should have been on that. Like, that's my bus. And, I didn't realize that, and I watched it. He went right by him, and Jimbo's just there, and you go like, wow, he could have flattened Jimbo. And, his plays would have gone everywhere. Could you imagine that? That'd have been all over everywhere.
What was it there? One of those old Cotton Bowl games where a player came off the bench for Rice or Center College or somebody and just tackled the guy. Jimbo could have just made a tackle. Kind of put his. He always says, "Your actions speak so loud, I can't hear what you're saying." Maybe if he just wraps that guy up and puts it down, that they can really see some good form tackling.
But no penalties out there, like 4 or 5 yards, because the guy runs to the left. I'm thinking like, holy cow.
In classic Jimbo, right? He's asked about after the game. He thought it was a busted play and thought it was dead, and he's just getting on his guy because that's what Jimbo does, right? I mean, that's just who he is. And I think it just happened so quick that in the heat of the moment, you're like, wait, what is going on? And it's like, oh, that guy's going, and it just happened so quick that he should have been flagged. Like, there's no question about it.
I am shocked there wasn't a penalty. And what if that guy got tripped up by him? I mean, I don't. Yes, there would be a penalty assessed, and it would be not a sideline warning, but a sideline violation, personal foul.
Does he get ejected?
Does he get ejected? Yeah, it's just.
Yeah, like what happened to Mike Tomlin? You should know about this. I can't remember. Remember he did this.
Yeah, he did it against Baltimore. That was intentional.
Jimbo's was incidental. Yeah.
Very incidental, but it was just funny. And then the batted play by Anderson, they didn't know that was going on. It's like Travis said, it's Auburn and A&M. It just weird things happen.
Hey, A&M survived odd year Auburn. That's all that really matters for the Aggies. Odd year Auburn, don't want to mess with it. Well, hey, be sure to check theeagle.com for all of our coverage on today's game. And, we'll be back next week breaking down more Aggie football. See you then.